If we're going to follow the flow of the urine, to tell you the truth, we're going to have to come back to this idea of the nephron. Okay, so we'll come back to the nephron, but really what's going on is the nephron is what's, going to produce the urine, and then the urine is going to come down the collecting duct right here, or you can say it's a collecting tubule, comes down here, and it goes all the way to the end of the pyramid. So here's a pyramid right here, and the pyramid has a base, and the pyramid has an apex. And the apex of a renal pyramid is known as a papilla, right? Looks like a little nipple, so it's called a papilla. And where the collecting duct gets all the way down to the papilla, it now changes its name and it's called a papillary duct. Now the urine drains through the collecting duct, through the papillary duct, and just kind of leaks out of the tip of this papilla right here into a minor calyx. So this little cup-like structure that we see here is a calyx, and in fact this is a minor calyx. One minor calyx for each renal pyramid, one minor calyx for this renal pyramid. Now, where one minor calyx joins with another minor calyx, we now form a major calyx. Same thing on this side. We have one renal pyramid with one papilla, one renal pyramid with one papilla. So that papilla goes to a minor calyx. This papilla goes to a minor calyx. And in fact, what we see here, because the kidneys are three-dimensional, if we look, this opening, this little hole right here, represents another minor calyx, and you can see that round structure with all those little dimples, those little holes in it. That represents a single papilla, and each one of those little dimples or holes represents a papillary duct. So we see minor calyx, minor calyx, minor calyx, where they all come together forms a major calyx. Now, where the major calyces all join together, that's where they form the renal pelvis. The renal pelvis gets drained by the ureter. Yes? Let's see. Oh, if we're doing the regions of the kidney, we've been talking about the renal pyramids. The renal pyramids belong to what is referred to as the medulla, or the medullary region of the kidney. So all of this dark tissue, if we kind of follow it along, represents the medulla of the kidney. The medulla is surrounded or capped on the outside by the cortex. So this is just like bone. There's a medulla and a cortex. So this is the cortex, or the cortical region of the kidney outside here, this lighter portion. What you should notice, though, is there are portions where the medulla is interrupted by a section of cortex. So cortex comes down here, cortex comes down here. Each one of those sections is known as a renal column. So here's a pyramid, and in between those two pyramids is a renal column. Now, one of the things that's significant about the renal column is you'll notice that there's blood vessels which are running through the renal columns. So runs through here, and in fact, in between these two renal pyramids, the blood vessels are running through right here. Okay? These blood vessels which are running through here, and I'm not going to differentiate between arteries and veins, I'll just say vessels. These vessels which are running through here, through the renal column, are known as interlobar. So these are interlobar vessels. The reason they're called interlobar is every single pyramid that you see is supposed to represent a single kidney lobe. So one pyramid, one lobe. One pyramid, one lobe. So if these vessels run between the lobes, then they are interlobar vessels. Now what we'll see is the interlobar vessels are going to get to the region which is known as the corticomedullary junction. It's where the cortex meets the medulla. And where they do get to, where the interlobar vessels get to the corticomedullary junction, they will start to branch, and they will give off what are known as arcuate vessels. So arcuate arteries and veins. And they're called that because they arc over the base of each renal pyramid. Now, those arcuate vessels, if we jump to this section right here, what we should see is this is one single renal pyramid. This is the cortical region right here. And we can see here's the renal capsule. Again, they represented it as dark, but it should be light. Here's the corticomedullary junction. And what we see is these are interlobar vessels coming up like this, running right next to the pyramid. They branch, and they're going to give you arcuate vessels right here. Those arcuate vessels are going to give off what are referred to as interlobular vessels. So interlobular arteries, right, coming up like this. And eventually those interlobular arteries are going to give off what are referred to as the afferent vessels, right? So that's where we're going to start dealing with the nephron, okay? But before we do, let's say cortex, right, pyramids,
Professor,
columns.
but aren't those the ones that divide the lobes? So you're pointing this to.
Yeah.
Wait, say that again?
Those are the ones that
Those
are
are lobar
divided
also, right?
lower.
Interlobar.
Or
And
interlobar.
what are
These are
those?
interlobular,
Oh.
right? So interlobar, arcuate, interlobular.
Oh.
Okay?
Okay.
So those little ones are interlobulars, right? We did arcuates. We talked about ureter.
Between the nephrons or between
The interlobulars, yeah, are kind of coming up into the cortex, right? And what they're doing is they're going to end up supplying all of those nephrons. Yeah? Okay, so if we start talking about nephron, right, when we're dealing with a nephron, what we can do is we can look at, okay, there are a couple structures which are, associated with the nephron, and this one is a close-up of one of these little balls or capsules right here, okay? So what you have is this ball-like structure right here is a glomerulus, and the glomerulus is formed when you have, right here, this is an afferent vessel, okay, this is what's bringing blood in, so the afferent vessel brings the blood in, and as we look, they've kind of cut away this little section to show you that this is a section, a region of specialized tissue, which is called the juxtaglomerular complex. Okay, so these are juxtaglomerular cells, right? And we'll get back to that later. But the afferent vessel brings the blood in, and you can see that right here, all this weird yellow tissue that's covering it, this is an endothelial tissue. This is the tissue which is lining the inside of what is known as Bowman's capsule. Right here. So this is Bowman's capsule. If I pull out the vessels, the arteries, this is Bowman's capsule. And the endothelium, right, covers these capillaries, and what happens is these capillaries are leaky. They leak out fluids. But the openings in the capillaries do not perfectly match up every single time with the openings in the endothelium. So you can see those little squiggly lines, openings in the endothelium, and because they don't always match up perfectly, the fluids and solutes that are being pushed out of the capillaries end up getting filtered because the holes don't match up perfectly, so it creates different sized openings. And that's the beginning of the filtration process.